a meeting to order for Monday, June 1st, 2020. Roll call.
Eversol, Agni, Nemitz, Ressler, Book, Martins, Riddle.
Yes, everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any proclamations, recognition, presentations,
Nothing this evening, sir.
public input? Has anybody chimed?
I do have one that was received, Mr. Mayor.
Please read on, sir.
It was received from Jane Crawford. I believe it was received over the weekend, and she just had one comment. Consider closing off some side streets to allow Main Street restaurants to put up tents and allow outdoor dining for the summer months. This will help ease the hardship they have been through. And she did provide an email if anybody wants to reply, post any discussion you might have.
Awesome. And we'll address that a little later as well as in my comments. Any other public input, or do you have anything, James?
No, sir.
All righty. So under comments and announcements, it has been brought to my attention, the Illinois Municipal League is officially canceled for this year. The 107th conference will not happen this year. The board has still been, we've been meeting, we've been having our quarterly board meetings virtually. We've still been having our executive committee meetings. We're still very aware and keeping tabs on the bills and what's happening in the House and the Senate. I guess if there's anything COVID has done is it's slowed down a lot of the happenings in Springfield. So I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but they're not coming after municipalities as much as what they had been. So as far as we're concerned, it's kind of good. And then we'll discuss it more later, but as far as Ms. Crawford's statement, absolutely, we are looking at and will be doing anything and everything within reason and within the codes, and also adopting some new codes for the businesses, for the outside seating to comply with the governor's executive order. So it will be a work in progress. You know, hopefully the businesses will understand that may be a slight moving target as we move forward, that, you know, we're going to try to be as flexible and loose as possible to begin with, but we may have to reel things in as we go down the road. So at this point, we are going to do whatever makes sense and whatever we can from a common sense standpoint to help the businesses get back to business. Any aldermen have any comments, announcements? Department heads, directors? Anybody out in virtual land?
No.
All right. Consent agenda, Wes.
We have 3 items on the consent agenda. The first one is a motion to approve the minutes of the May 18, 2020 regular city council meeting. Item number 2 is a motion to approve the closed session minutes of May 18, 2020 closed session regular city council meeting. And then item number 3 is a motion to approve payment of vouchers for the period of May 16th through May 29th, 2020 in the total amount of $207,230.89.
Anybody have any questions, concerns, wish anything to be removed? If not, entertain a motion to approve by Hoop, second by Riddle. Oh, wait. Was that Holcamp?
It is.
All right, second by Holcamp.
Thank you. Thank you.
You spoke up in time, man. Good to go.
Hey, good look.
Roll call. You haven't shaved in a while.
Eversol.
Yes.
Agni. Nemitz. Ressler.
Yes.
Book.
Yes.
Holcamp.
Yes.
Martins.
Yes.
And Riddle.
Yes.
All right, next is closed session if needed. Does anybody have any specific questions that haven't been answered on the collective bargaining agreement between the AFL-CIO and the commercial of the City of Columbia for the emergency medical services. I see not heads, oh, Alderman Neiman.
No, I just have a comment, and I want to thank our city administrator, Doug. I don't know if you were solely responsible for that spreadsheet and the red line that the mayor asked for too, but that really made things easy to understand. That was very well put together. I truly appreciate it. And I think to have that even when you're going forth with other units, that would be, it's very helpful to see. It really condenses things and makes it easy for us to have that information. Thank you very much for doing that.
Anybody else, any concerns or comments? All right, then we'll just go into unfinished business. Entertain a motion to ordinance 3519, approving a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Columbia and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees as presented. If somebody would be so inclined to make that motion by Mary Ellen, second by Alderman Hook. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversaw, Agni, Schmitz, Wrestler, Hook, Ocamp, Martins.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and then Doug, on the electrical aggregation.
Yes, sir. What this is, it authorizes me to sign on behalf of the city. The aggregation at the June 16th bid opening that's scheduled. We have received notice that the potential bidders are not willing to offer the price match provision. Based off of a conference call that was held between Southwestern Illinois municipalities last week, the suppliers are all of a mindset that the ability for residents to opt out at any time is protection enough. I do want to point out that the resolution does have the caveat that in order for it to be effective and for me to sign it, the rate that we get from the alternative residential energy suppliers must be lower than the current Emeren default rate. So that is something certainly that we will be looking at. And I know that several other municipalities that are in our particular Metro East consortium have that same provision. So if for whatever reason it does come in higher than the Emeren default, we'll kind of play it by ear and see where we would go with either a second bid opening or could potentially mean the end of the aggregation model.
Now, how many years is this for?
There were a couple of different terms. They were looking at an 18, a 24, and a 36-month term for the suppliers.
Okay. So three years would be the
Correct.
longest. And so we're not going to get the price match guarantee, but basically we're not going to sign into it unless it is already lower to begin with.
Correct.
Perfect.
And that would be effective with the second reading, I believe, in December.
So another just quick question. If people have opted out on the current aggregation and we sign this new contract, would they have to opt out again?
They would have to opt in at that time because they had already opted out.
Okay.
It's my understanding, though, for accounts of that nature, they would receive a mailing from whoever the new supplier is, notifying them of the rate and offering them the opportunity to call and opt into the program. But certainly, we want to make sure that there are some residents that we are aware of that have signed on with other energy suppliers that are out there in the marketplace. We would just caution them to make sure that if the aggregation rate is lower, they're familiar enough with their contracts where they're not incurring any kind of an early termination provision, because I have seen those kind of bite folks in the past.
All right. Any other questions, comments on that? Then entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2020-11, authorize the execution of the service agreement with the lowest responsible bidder for the electrical aggregation from Alderman Agni. Second, Alderman Eversaw. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversaw, Agni, Nemitz,
Yes.
Wrestler, Hook,
Yes.
Ocamp.
Yes.
Martins,
Yes.
Riddle.
Yes.
Thank you.
And number 3 is just redoing our intergovernmental agreement between the City of Columbia and the Columbia School District for a school resource officer, or the Cops in Schools program. Anybody need any update, or I think everybody knows what that's all about? Any questions? All right, entertain a motion to authorize, I guess it would just be the intergovernmental agreement as presented. Motion by Alderman Eversole, second by Alderman Martins. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversole,
Yes.
Agni, Nemitz,
Yes.
Ressler,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Ocamp,
Yes.
Martins,
Yes.
Riddle.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty, next would be new business resolution 2020-12, adopting temporary outdoor seating regs. Scott, you want to give us the Reader's Digest version of kind of the overlay on that?
Sure will. Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the idea here was to allow restaurants, taverns, et cetera, to operate with outdoor seating. In phase 3 of the COVID crisis, which would otherwise be in some cases strictly limited by zoning and/or other municipal codes. So the idea here is just to establish a permit process where they can, where we would temporarily waive those locational and site requirements, and allow the businesses to operate outdoors for dining and drinking purposes, as allowed by the governor's Restore Illinois plan. One thing worth mentioning, obviously there were a number of ways we could go as far as where we could allow, what we would do. We kicked around the idea of closing streets. What it all boiled down to is this, basically. The reason why we espouse the approach that we did in the regulations is this: with Main Street under construction right now, it's strictly limited the way we could use the space on Main Street, both from a sidewalk perspective and the on-street parking perspective. So what we presented to you in these regulations is to allow restaurants to use 100% of their off-street parking for the purposes of outdoor dining, which would allow them to operate a fair amount, most of them, of outdoor dining seating area. They can also use the public sidewalk upon approval of the permit. We're obviously, we let them, we didn't put any restrictions this first weekend, since it was before you could act on this, and also their outdoor patio areas. The problem with closing the streets is, with Main Street closed and them being able to utilize all of their parking area, we really need to have the side streets open during the week for on-street parking, as well as traffic circulation and connection. Now, besides that, by ordinance, it requires a special use permit to close the streets. I think from staff's perspective, we would be 100% in support of closing them on the weekends. We're just afraid of the parking and circulation considerations during the week if they were to be closed during the week, given where they would otherwise be allowed to have their seating areas. So that's it in a nutshell. We are recommending that you would act this evening so we can get the permit process in place and get this approved for everyone's use.
Does anybody have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Alderman Ressler.
How would this affect the?
Louder. Sorry.
How would this affect Sunset Overlook, given that currently it's?
It wouldn't. They're still under the same guidelines.
Okay,
This
so
does not change their situation.
It doesn't open up any more.
Nope. No, we already checked into it, and we still can't supersede the judge's order.
Maybe you want to repeat that.
The question was, does this change or affect Sunset Overlook? And the answer is no. The judge's order still stands, and even though we're allowing outside seating and making special concessions, they would still be held to the judge's order. Any other questions? Does anybody have an issue? I know, Scott, and you brought up great points, and it's what we had discussed in the past about just arbitrarily just shutting down all the streets. But I did talk with Doug and we talked with Chief as far as if a business says, hey, we just want to shut down this part of the side street next to our business from 5 o'clock to 8:30. And as long as Chief feels it's safe, Does anybody have issues with that, just on an as-needed basis? And I see everybody shaking their head no. Steve, are you shaking your head no? You gotta speak to see it. Thank you.
That's scary.
So yeah, what we're gonna do is on an as-needed basis, if, if a business does say, hey, it would be really helpful, we've just been swamped and we could really use the space, we're definitely, we're just not gonna willy-nilly do it, but as long as chief and, Public Works says, hey, we can get the barricades out there, chief says it's safe, and it won't be overnight, it won't be for any length of time, it's just gonna be for a few hours for dining purposes. Alderman Nemeth?
What will the process be though? They just contact the police department, or will there be a barricade from DOPW put out, or do we have a process in place?
No.
For when that happens? Will we have one?
Probably not.
Typically, it would be done for the special event permit.
Yeah.
We've done in the past for UDATs. If that's something, we can certainly.
And we'll probably waive the fees for those, since we're waiving the other fees. Just, basically, hey, hurry up, fill out the app, get it to us, and we'll be as fast and expedient as possible.
And this won't be waiting for the next.
That's what I was gonna ask.
No.
This is staff level
Yeah.
approval.
Under these circumstances, these would all just be staff level approval, and let's get her done.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Otherwise,
Yes.
we have another 2
No.
weeks. 2 weeks that you would be.
No, we really want to be able to adjust and move. And like I said, I know some cities are just shutting down streets. Well, I've also heard that those shut down streets are empty because the business goes, we don't need all that room. So let's let them tell us what they need realistically, and let's adjust to it.
And doing it on a multi-night or multi-day time would not be a problem. If they want to, everyone do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday or
It's
Sunday.
just, it'll be a time when they can put up the barricades and a time that they'll take them down. But yeah, they could say, hey, until this is over, we want Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night from 4:30 or 5 o'clock PM until 8:39. And the other thing we talked about is after dark, it really doesn't make sense for the streets to be shut down anyway. It's going to be hard to get electric out there, to get lighting out there, and there's an added hazard by having those streets shut down and stuff. So unless they come up with a very good reason why we need to have them shut down, otherwise it makes sense during the dining hours, because that's what this is all about. And I believe that's what we're going to be doing.
One of the biggest things that we're gonna be looking for then at the staff level is to make sure that the access to the ADA parking is still unrestricted, and you still have a free ingress egress from the ADA as well. And I'll certainly be in consultation with city engineer Chris Smith, Chief Paul Scott, and myself.
Chief, you got anything to add, or?
No, I think it'll work out well, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All righty, so resolution number 20, do we have a motion second on that already?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-12 for the temporary outdoor seating by Riddle, second by Nemeth. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversol, Foggy, Nemeth,
Yes.
Wrestler,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Martins.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next is ordinance 3520, vacating a portion of surplus right-of-way adjacent to West Sandbank Road on Old Bluff Road. This is part of the 11 South project. Everybody aware of that? All right, so that would be ordinance number 3520. Somebody so inclined by Eversol, second by Martins. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversol, Foggy, Nemeth,
Yes.
Wrestler,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Riddle.
Any questions on the approving of the corrective final plat for 11 South? All right, with none, entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 3521. If somebody be so inclined to make that motion. Motion by Hook, second by Nemeth. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversol, Foggy, Nemeth,
Yes.
Wrestler,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Martins.
Yes.
Riddle.
Yes.
Thank you.
And next would be a motion to award the bids for the Main Street resurfacing project to Reuters American Maintenance in the amount of $93,986.60. If someone would be so inclined by Eversol, second by Martins. Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Eversol, Agni, Nemitz,
Yes.
Wrestler, Pook,
Yes.
Colcamp,
Yes.
Martins,
Yes.
Riddle.
Yes.
All right, before going into closed session, does anybody have anything for the good of the council? Then I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session number 5 ILCS 120-2C6, sale or lease of property owned by the public body. If somebody is so inclined to make that motion by Nemitz, second by Hook. Roll call, please.
Eversol, Agni, Nemitz,
Yes.
Wrestler,
Yes.
Colcamp.
Yes.
Martins, Riddle.
All right, James, is it just us?